Welcome to Freshwaves. I'm your host, Bren Masson, and today we're going to be talking about nutrition with fitness expert and nutrition guru, Shawn Nisbet. We're going to tell you a few tips about boosting your immune system. We're going to talk about the immune system in general, and all of this is to help keep you healthy and happy and safe through this pandemic. Good morning, Shawn.
Good morning, Brenda.
It's nice to have you on board. Usually we're in the studio together, but today we're on a cell phone call that's being recorded through my Caster Pro. And it's not the same as when I get to sit and see your smiling face, but it'll have to do for now because of the pandemic.
But it's nice that we don't have to wear masks because nobody will be able to hear us.
So tell us a bit about the immune system, Shawn. I mean, we all know that, everybody's got an immune system and we're all trying to keep it healthy right now. But what does that actually mean?
That's a great question because we do. We think of the immune system just sort of comes in and out and like, I'm going to strengthen my immune system or my immune system is weak. Well, we have to think the immune system is many systems in our body. It entails many different organs. It's these cells that fight for us. And there is a network. It's like an army of cells. There's phagocytes and lymphocytes and guards and all these. There's actually about 21 different kinds of immune cells, and each immune cell has about 4 different jobs plus. And what they do is when a foreign body comes into our bodies, they set up an attack. We hope. And, people say, well, how did germs get into our body? And I always think that that's a great place to start. Because we have this skin, which is protective of us, and then we have these orifices, which in themselves have protection within them. So how would a bacteria or a virus get into our bodies? Well, they'll get into our mouth, our eyes, our nose, our private areas, wounds, or bites. So the reason I go to the wounds and bites, because those are 2 other ways that germs can get into our bodies, and we never think about those. But the wound would be, you step on a rusty nail. Well, now you've broken your barrier of your skin, and that's going to set up an immune response. Or if something bites you, even an insect bites you, that's going to break, and then stuff gets into our bodies that are not supposed to be there, and our immune system kicks up. But I think right now, because of everything that's going on around us, we are really aware of the fact that germs can get in orifices, and we'll talk from the neck up to this morning. And that's through our eyes and our nose and our mouth and our ears. Not as much through our ears and our eyes, but the nose and the mouth. And that's why when we touch something and then we touch those areas, that's how things will get in. Or if they're in the air, that's how things will get in. And that's why we are protecting our nose and our mouth. And those 2 areas are very different in the way that they can or cannot fight infection.
Oh, it's funny. As soon as you mention the nose and the mouth, your hand almost instantly, without much forethought, goes to the nose and scratches it. And I think it's kind of one of those things we have to really pay attention to. They say that you can touch your face, I think, 85 times in a minute or something, and you just do it subconsciously. So we have to start becoming aware of touching our faces.
Yeah, but then as we're going to talk later, there's ways we can weaken our immune system and ways we can strengthen. I think I heard on a study once that our bodies fight off, and I thought it was more than this, about 300 cold viruses during our life. Those are the ones that we fight. So really our body, if we keep it healthy and strong, we can fight off so much because we are being hit every second of the day by something. They're always there. Bacteria and viruses are always around in foreign substances. And people say, I haven't had a cold in years. It doesn't mean that they weren't subjected to a cold virus. That they were. So our job is knowing that they're there. It's just part of who we are and part of the environment which we are part of. And our job is just to stay as strong as we can. And then if we do happen to get sick, to do everything in our power to aid our bodies at that time.
All right. Well, that makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
It's kind of simple, isn't it?
Well, I actually heard someone, another health professional, say you don't need to fight a cold. You just need to be strong enough that it's going to hit you and go somewhere else.
Yes, yes. And, when we think of the way that our body fights, we don't think of our skin. That's the first thing we have to think about. We're out and about protecting our nose and our eyes, but really protect your skin. Make sure that it's healthy, and that's through nutrition, and hydration. If you have rashes and areas that are open sores, we have to protect those, because that's how stuff's going to get inside, because our skin actually secretes an oil that has bacteria-killing properties. So you want to keep our skin healthy, but there can be a thing with over-cleaning. We over-clean our bodies hugely. And actually, we're getting rid of some of that good bacteria, because we're basically just a host of bacteria. When you really think of who we are, we have like 100 trillion cells, but we have 10 times as much bacteria on us and in us. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. Most of it's good. Most of it's there to help us fight infections. So sometimes if we're washing too much, we have to now, of course, when we're going in places. But I think we overwash and we get rid of some of that protective barrier.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because one of the things that I was going to ask you about is wearing gloves, that maybe if you do have a cut, you've been chopping up your salad in the kitchen and you got a little nick on your hand, maybe you should have that covered up if you're going out grocery shopping. Yeah,
the gloves are an interesting thing. If I had a cut, I would just make sure I had a Band-Aid on it, and maybe an ointment or something, or honey people will use, just to fight the infection so things can't get to it. The gloves are an interesting thing. I'll throw that up in the air and leave it there on whether people wear gloves or not, because sometimes people wear gloves thinking their skin is protected, but they've touched every single surface and then more, right? Mm-hmm. When they're wearing those gloves, it's kind of like a false protection, but necessary. Here's an interesting note, TMI, too much information for people, but I actually wear disposable gloves the only time I wear them is when I go and get gas. I don't know why. And it's kind of nice because then my hands don't smell like gas afterwards. But that is the one place that I've actually wear them right now.
I use them too for when I'm working with chemicals. I think people are using a lot of wipes right now that they don't understand. There are not hand sanitizers. They're surface wipes, and they're toxic. They're very, very toxic, and you should have gloves on when you use toxic chemicals. So that's what I use my disposable gloves for. And raw meat. When I'm handling raw meat in the kitchen, I always use the gloves. I know you can wash your hands afterwards, but I just feel more comfortable using the gloves, and I just throw them away.
Actually, I do too. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, so tell us some of the main parts of your immune system, because the immune system seems to be something that is untangible. It's just some entity that lives within us. What is your immune system?
It's a system, and meaning it has many parts to it. So we have the thymus, which is if you sort of your clavicle bones, your collarbones, and come across to the middle and go down a little bit, that's your thymus. And there's some people feel if you just sort of tap it lightly, you can increase your immune system and your energy, but that's where T cells are made. And then we have our bone marrows. Our bone marrow makes a lot of our immune system, and out from there can get those B cells and things like that. And we have our oh my goodness, I've just forgot the words. I don't have it in front of me. Our lymph nodes. We have our lymph nodes that are in our armpits and in our neck and in our groin. That lymphatic system is crucial. So think of when you have a sore throat. Sometimes a doctor will feel your neck to see if it's swollen, correct? Mm-hmm. And sometimes under our armpits. Well, these three areas are where your lymphatic system picks up all the debris. The lymphatic system runs right along your arterial system and your veins and your arteries, which are vast, but your lymphatic system is even more vast. And what it does is it picks up all that your body doesn't want. And the immune system is within there. And then it brings those to those three areas where everything comes and attacks them. So when you have swelling in those areas, you know your body is working for you. You actually want sometimes to have heat and redness and things like that, because that means your immune system is actually working. We won't talk about this today, but with Lyme disease, Sometimes people will get a bit of redness, or maybe that bullseye, maybe not. But it's been said that those people who do get that reaction, it means your immune system is strong. It recognized it and it's attacking it. When you get a bite, you don't want that redness, but that means that your body's fighting it. When you run a bit of a fever, many times people will get sick, but they won't really get sick. They'll just think, oh, I feel really tired today. Or they might run a low-grade fever. Well, that's your body. Maybe you're so healthy it's not going to take you down and make you really sick, but your body is still working. When your body temperature starts to go up, your body doesn't know and doesn't even want aspirin and things like that. It doesn't know that. It says, I've got to fight this within myself. So your body, one of the things it does is it increases your temperature, because a lot of bacteria and virus cannot live in a higher temperature. So to squash it down immediately with an aspirin, say I'm running a little bit of a fever. No, if you're starting to run a little bit of fever or feeling a little tired, you should honor your body. I always say we're brilliant from the neck down, not so bright from the neck up. So when the neck up is going, I have to continue on my day. I'm not feeling so good. I have a bit of a fever. I'm just going to take some aspirin or Tylenol. I'm going to get on my way. But really, we should feel that. Our bodies talk to us in pain and discomfort, and we should say, why am I tired? And why am I running this low-grade fever? Can you slow down what you're doing? Can you actually just go back into bed for a few hours? When you're resting is when your body can really take care of itself. But that immune system, when it tries to heal you, and you keep going at 100 miles an hour, your body can't do all those things at once.
It sounds like it has a really tough job, that immune system.
Well, everything from cold to cancer. Yeah. It's really us, and it is so vast, and there's all these different organs within our body which are making different cells, but we have to think that how does a body make a cell? A lymphocyte, a phagocyte, a B cell, a T cell. How does it make these? Well, the raw materials are coming in with the food that we eat. It's not that the body can just make these all on their own. So that's why the healthy diet and all the things we'll talk about and things that can actually affect the making of those cells. Because cells only live for a certain amount of time and then they die, which is very good because I don't want 60-plus-year-old cells in my body. I'd like some new ones. So our body makes cells and then they die. It's called apoptosis, cellular death. We want that, but the new ones, they can be affected. When I talk about alcohol and sugar and antibiotics and things like that in our gut flora, and then we think, what can we do to make sure the cells we're making this second are good? I'm not going to say brand names, but I will say maybe I don't want my cells to be McDonald's cells.
Okay, well, you and I both watched that movie about sugar, when the sugar was put into this fellow's diet who had a beautiful, clean diet up until that point, and he used himself as a guinea pig. And if anyone hasn't seen the movie, it really is worth a look. It's The Sugar Movie, I think is what it was called. And it was just a fantastic demonstration of what certain things that we take for granted, like sugar, can do to our immune systems and to our bodies in general. So lots of things out there to look at. Okay, so why don't we run through some of the things that we can do to strengthen our immune system? You have a list on your nutrition page, and the number one thing is don't smoke.
Well, that's a given, and I think we're kind of understanding that more now than ever, and that includes secondhand smoke. The basic reason for that is when you smoke, it brings in multitudes of toxins into our body. Well, we have systems in our body which can fight those toxins. It's called a detox system. When we ask one system to work harder, it has to take energy from another system. And many times when we're under stress or under attack, the immune system is one of those things that gets hit. So does our digestive system. So when we are smoking, bringing those toxins into ourselves, the body is trying to fight those toxins, trying to get rid of them very quickly, and it will be at the forfeit of our immune system, which cannot work extremely strong at that time. So if you're a smoker, you do have to know that your body the immune system is working at a lower rate.
Well, I think everybody knows that that's one of the best things you can
I
do for
think
yourself
so.
is to just quit smoking. If you're a smoker,
Mm-hmm.
don't think that, oh, I've been smoking for so long that it doesn't matter anymore. It always matters. So if you can, stop.
Or at least cut down. There's
Yeah.
always lesser of the evil, and really watch and then do things to try to make your body healthier on the other side while you're working on that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, now the next one you have on your list is one that is a mega topic. We could actually spend a month of Fresh Waves shows talking about managing your stress.
Well, I think just saying that word made people stressed, right? It is. So our stress, just in a nutshell, having a stressful response, and remember, stress can be imagined or real. And most of the stress in our body is imagined. It's our thoughts. It's our shoulda, coulda, woulda. So whenever we're in that state, when we're worrying about the past, the present, the future, our body sets up the exact same way as if we were being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, or we were chasing an animal to try to find our next dinner. The stressful way that our body reacts is exactly the same, with increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, increased norepinephrine, increased cortisol. Those things happen whether we are having an argument with somebody, sitting in traffic trying to get somewhere, on a computer, something went wrong, or we are in real danger. And every time we have a stressful response, it can weaken our immune system for the next 30 minutes. It has that much of an effect on us. So if you've had an argument or a worrisome thought, and then you walk by somebody who maybe coughs or sneezes, or you touch a surface and let it enter an orifice, then your immune system is weakened for the next 30 minutes, and it has a better chance of grabbing hold of you.
Wow. So if we're looking at managing stress, have you got any little tips for that we can, the deep breathing and all that kind of stuff?
Well, yeah, the stressful response, there's a lot of things we can do to strengthen it. The main thing is to know, and not to get big words in here, but there's two nervous systems that we live in. One's called the sympathetic nervous system. Some people may have heard of that. And the parasympathetic nervous system. And our bodies are very black and white. They are either in the sympathetic nervous system, meaning stress response, or they're in the parasympathetic. And it's hard for people to understand that. You can't be like, well, I'm just kind of stressed. It would be the equivalent of saying, well, I'm kind of pregnant, because you are either stressed or you are not. Now, the degree of that stress is where we vary. Well, it's been shown in labs that if you're in a stressful response, and they sometimes would use, EEGs, electrodes on the head, to watch how the brain's reacting to the stressful situation, and they will use maybe a really heinous movie that's bothering people. Then they find that they take them away and have them breathe deep, 3 true deep breaths, not shallow, but 3 deep breaths. I would prefer 10 and 2 minutes and 5 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, but 3 deep breaths done properly has been shown to be able to flip your nervous system from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic. Oh, you may have to do that 500 times in a day. But whenever you feel, we can feel that stress. Sometimes we can't actually, and it, ends up really causing adverse effects in our bodies, adrenal fatigue and that. But if you can be totally aware, and that's why I think when it comes to stress, it's stress awareness and then management. Because to just say, and management is important too. It's not just don't be stressed. It has to be awareness of, know what your stressors are, what really bothers you, and now try to manage them. And one of the multitudes of ways of doing that is through this deep breath. In and out the nose right now. There's a reason that I like to breathe in and out the nose for our immune system. But just the breath is probably the simplest way. You can be in an altercation with somebody in an argument. Let them get all that negative response. You can just look at them. They don't even have to know that you're breathing deep. You can do this with your children too. You just own your own self. You're sitting there doing deep breaths, knowing what's happening in their bodies, is not happening in your body. And that's kind of empowering, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's a very powerful thing. And like you said, you can do it just about anywhere. It's not like we're asking you to all of a sudden sit in the lotus position in the middle of longos. It just means that you take your time and you just find a spot where you can stand and just take a few deep breaths and say, this will pass. I'll get through this.
Well, years ago, I tell people who like to go to malls for Christmas shopping in the past, but where they were real mall shoppers and they'd find it so stressful, they'd always get a migraine. So why do you have to go through so fast? Why don't you be like the normal man and just find a chair to sit on and fall asleep? Or just sit there and collect yourself? Because we think we have to keep going and going and going, and just taking those moments to pull back, to be at your desk and just look away and look outside. But we actually become less productive as we become stressed out. But we're feeling so exhausted, we don't even know that. And plus, there is a hormone, the norepinephrine and adrenaline, all of those that are going up to allow you to fight and flight. But cortisol goes up, and cortisol shuts down our immune system also.
And if the cortisol is up, isn't that what they call the cortisol roll, that one around your middle?
Oh, that's the worst part, yes. Because stress, there's an article I wrote once, because everyone worries about their weight. And that's not really what I use as a margin for health. I like to look at waste. So the article was called Waste, Not Weight, because your waist is really the indicator of your stress. Mm-hmm. And if you're under stress, it does get larger, because when you're under stress, the body will break down your glycogen, not to get too detailed, and that glycogen goes into the form of sugar to go into our bloodstream to allow us to fight or flight. Then the body goes, well, I just gave you a lot of sugar. You're not fighting and flighting, which it was meant to do. You're still sitting there or standing there. So then it says, oh my goodness, I have to get that sugar out. So your insulin goes out. It pulls that sugar out. You can't turn it back into glycogen. It quickly turns it into body fat. But it doesn't even go in areas where we may want a little bit of extra padding. It goes right to our abdominal area. So that is really quite a good indicator of your stress.
And I guess if people are not willing to boost their immune system and work on their stress management for the pandemic, then they can at least do it for the vanity of losing some weight.
Well, on that note itself, colds and flus, any kind of illness, when it happens in a body that's holding too much adipose tissue, our adipose tissue, known as fat, that fat tissue is very inflammatory. And we know that when most diseases known to mankind are inflammatory in nature, and colds and flus are inflammatory. I don't really want to talk COVID too much because I don't know it that well. Nor I think many of us know it that well. But they have noticed that people who go into the hospital, they're going in because they are inflamed, whether it's an autoimmune disease causing inflammation or their weight. And if you're already in a state of inflammation, your immune system is already on high alert, and sometimes something else might just be too much. So weight control, I don't want people to be skinny. We don't want to be the weight that we were when we were 18. Good Lord, I got a whole wardrobe. I can't get past my thighs. But we don't want that. That'll cause stress. We are maturing. Our bodies do change. But just to have it under management, because that extra weight does have an effect on our bodies in many ways, including the inflammatory markers.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on the time when we have to take our first break. So we'll pause for a little moment. And when we come back, we'll continue our talk about boosting your immune system. We're talking with Shawn Nisbet this morning, holistic nutritionist, master Nordic pole walker. And I'm your host, Bren Masson. So we'll continue our strengthening your immune system talk right after this. Stay tuned. Hi, this is Bren Masson, host of Freshwaves. Freshwaves is a talk show and podcast that talks about fresh, new ideas. Actually, sometimes we talk about really old, ancient ideas too that are becoming fresh once more. You can hear us on Whistle FM Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. or go to our website, freshwaves.ca, to hear the podcasts. We also love to hear your stories and your suggestions, so drop us a line at bren@freshwaves.ca. We'd love to hear from you. Fresh Waves, it really is fresh. We're back on Fresh Waves, and we're speaking with Shawn Nisbet this morning. She's a holistic nutritionist, master Nordic pole walker, fitness guru, and I'm your host, Bren Masson, and together we're going to present some interesting ideas on how to strengthen your immune system. And we've done similar talks to this before, Shawn, and I've really appreciated everything you had to say, the holiday stress talk and the spring, let's get out and detox kind of a talk. But we're in the middle of a global pandemic. And like it or not, people are concerned. And I think they're concerned, and that brings up their stress level. And we just spoke about stress. And then they might have an extra drink or two because they're trying to de-stress. And drinking alcohol is probably not a great idea at this time either, is it?
Well, I'm sad to say it's not a great idea at any time. Having said that, I'll back up a little bit. If you're really living what you would call a stressful life, and when you come in at a moment and you pour a very small drink of maybe organic wine and you hydrate with water first, then you sit and you enjoy that little bit of wine, that may have a calming effect to you. And that's where you can use it to its advantage. It's when we do too much too often and maybe not the right kind. When it comes to just the immune system, not talking about anything else, your body, again, no matter which way we look at alcohol, it is also classified as a toxin to the body. And if your body is detoxing from taking in that toxin, whether it tastes good or not, your body can be weakened, your immune system, for up to 24 hours.
Yikes.
Yeah. Remember we said that a stressful response can weaken your immune system for about 30 minutes, and then drinking too much alcohol can shut it down for up to 24 hours, whereas sugar alone, we had touched on that. Oh, we need sugar. Yes, we love sugar. It makes things taste lovely. There's natural sugars found in our fruit, and which is fructose sugar and lactose if you choose to do milk products, but there is sugar in items, and you and I, being an average woman, we're not super athletes, so we can handle our bodies over and above naturally occurring sugar, about 6, maybe 8 teaspoons. Well, 8 teaspoons of sugar can throw you over all at once, and it can actually weaken your immune system. And if you eat too much sugar at one time, like a can of pop or let alone 2 or a big thing of pop, that's sugar, it can weaken your immune system. It can slow down the ability of your white blood cells to kill germs by 40%.
Yikes.
So these things really have an effect on our bodies, don't they?
Well, yeah, and alcohol is full of sugar. People don't realize that it's really, really full of sugar. Even wine, even if it's a dry wine, it still has a sugar content because it's made with grapes.
Well, that's why I say hydrate with water and drink something with flavor for the taste of it. But please don't hydrate with alcohol. Right?
And nor should you actually be hydrating with the supersized glass of orange juice, even if it's 100% natural orange juice. That's still too much sugar, isn't it?
It's too much sugar. Being a holistic nutritionist, I believe in the whole, not the part of. So I believe in taking that orange, and when you're peeling, you get the smell, which has effect on your body, calming you down. And now when you're eating it, you've got the chewing, which is using up some of your calories, and then you're swallowing. Your body has to break it down. It's coming in with a little bit of the sugar, with a lot of the fiber, and really the most nutritious part of an orange that has the most vitamin C, which is very good for our immune system, is actually in the white rind. So you really want to be eating that white. That's part of it when you're eating the orange in itself. So there's so many reasons not to take a whole food and then to fragment it. Plus, when you think of how many oranges you would consume if you had real orange juice, which we really don't, but if you were to squeeze your own oranges, you take this big, beautiful orange that would have taken moments to eat and digest and enjoy and give you satiety. And if you just take it like a lemon and squeeze the juice out of it, you're getting like maybe an eighth of a cup. So if you're getting this huge thing of juice for pennies, you have to really ask the question, is how much of that is real orange juice?
Even when you're at the grocery store, if you watch them make the orange juice, a lot of them have the machine that makes the orange juice. Take a look at how much of the fruit is left behind once you have the juice. It's staggering to take a look at it.
And on that note, we'll go even further, that when you eat the whole orange, you're getting the fiber. So nature gives us sweetness with fiber. The sweetest thing in nature are our fruits. Well, they come with fiber, and when your body has the sugar coming in and the fiber, and the digestion is up, you're using calories, the fiber slows the absorption of that sugar into your bloodstream. So you feel fuller longer, you have more energy for a longer period of time, your blood sugar doesn't spike, and also that fiber feeds your gut flora where most of your immune system resides. That immune system, which is in your gut flora, which is your gut bacteria, does not want juice. It wants the fiber. It eats everything that your body can't break down. So it's just a win-win-win if you choose the orange over the orange juice.
That's good to know, isn't it? All right, so the next one on your list is sleeping well. And sleeping well, I think, is easy for children, teenagers, and young adults. And the older you get, the harder that seems to be. Sleeping well for some people is a real challenge.
It's actually a huge challenge. I'm actually giving a talk this Thursday and next week on just sleep alone. One of the main things about sleep, so why when we get older? There can be a few things happening when we get older. Sometimes we become a lighter sleeper. Sometimes the snoring of a bedmate might be doing it. Sometimes we may have inflammation in our body causing pain, and that pain will wake us up. Sometimes we'll choose to drink before we go to bed, and our bladders don't hold that very well, and we have to get up, and then our mind starts going. So as we get older, there are lots of reasons, but it doesn't mean that as we get older, our sleep has to become worse. No, not at all. And it's not that we need less sleep. No, we still need sleep, and that amount of sleep is quite controversial, but they say 7 hours is the golden number, 8 for some. If you sleep less than 5 or more than 10, we're really looking at some problems there. But why is sleep so important for our immune system? Because our body heals when it's sleeping. And it only heals when we're sleeping. As soon as we open up our eyes in the morning, I always say, as soon as we open our eyes, we are in demolition derby until we get back to sleep. Mm-hmm. When my children were young and one was home being sick, I would let them be on the couch and they could watch, some TV until about noon if they chose to. Now, people would say, well, that's fine. They're lying down. We're spoiling them with homemade chicken soup and liquids and letting them relax. They're going to get better. But really not. And when they were really young, they were watching Disney movies. And every Disney movie is very sad because a mother dies in every movie, it seems. So watching these shows is not relaxing. And our body can't tell what we're seeing to what's actually happening. So if your child's on the couch watching these movies, they could be sad. That's stressful. Could be upsetting. The news comes on. So I would tell them at noon they'd have to go into their rooms, blinds closed, they'd have to sleep. Because I knew I wanted in the daytime at least 3 hours before all their siblings came in off the bus and chaos happened again. I'd want them in the daytime to get a few extra hours of healing. And that healing can't take place watching TV. So it has to be in a sleep mode. And then at night they would heal during their sleep. So sleep is really important. Our body detoxes while we are sleeping. So anything you brought in, whether it was in the form of smoking or alcohol or too much sugar, they are all toxins to our body. Your body does most of its detoxing at night, makes its growth hormones at night, it repairs at night, and it helps our immune system when we're sleeping. So sleep is really, really important.
Okay, well, I've kind of always known about sleep, but recently I've been actually reading some more sleep information, and it is fascinating. What a fascinating field. We'll have you on again another time to go into a full, 1 hour show all about sleep. But But for now, we know that sleep is important, so we're going to move on to exercise moderately, preferably outside. Well, you know me. Freshwaves also has another branch called Twigs and Tea, and I do forest therapy myself, so I know about the being outside and how wonderful it is to be out in nature at this time. But the exercise moderately. I see the same people on my street running, and I know that they've run 10K every day. Is that good for us right now?
Well, that's a great question, because exercise, people think more is better, and that's usually not for most things. So when you exercise moderately, and everyone's would be different. If they are elite athletes, maybe they can do a 10K at a moderate pace, but most of us can't. And sometimes it's the time you're out there. So to exercise, very, very important. We want to get points where our breathing has increased. When your breathing has increased, that's going to strengthen your immune system. But one of the interesting things that I'll note here is, first of all, when you exercise, I know it's hard to do, try to breathe in and out your nose, if you can. And it's hard to switch there. If you're a mouth breather, it's going to be very hard to do that. But if you breathe through your nose, it's quite powerful. Breathing through your nose, when you bring the oxygen in, first of all, that's where you're going to be protected. Because in your nose, you have epithelial cells in your nose, you have the cilia, those hairs in your nose. When you bring that air in, you actually have immune cells in your nose, and then they sort of go through this, like a conch shell shaped in your middle of your head before they get into your lungs. And that's where things are going to get hurt, right? Our job is to not let things get to our lungs. That's what we're doing with our masks right now. So if you're breathing through your nose, you get all that protection, it gets warm. But if you're breathing through your mouth, it's like having your door open and the screen door open. If you breathe through your nose, it's like having the screen door closed, if that makes sense. When you're breathing through your mouth, cold air right into your lungs, all those pathogens, everything is going to come in. So that's why you want to breathe through your nose. You also get more oxygen when you breathe through your nose, and your lungs are expanding better. And we now know that if you've got good lung capacity when you get a cold or flu, that helps your body move it through you. And the congestion doesn't set up in the infection as easy. And unless you have worked your lungs, you sing, Brenda, so you've got a very strong diaphragm muscle. But unless you've worked your diaphragm, it's a very strong muscle under your lung that when you have worked it, it pulls down upon inhalation, and it pulls your lungs down, and more air can go in. So you can't force feed your lungs. Mm-hmm. So keeping that is very good for our immune system. But here's a study they did. I'm going to forget the number now because I haven't quoted it for a long time. But they took, I believe it was 60-year-old women, young women, I would say, 60-year-old women, and they tested their immune cells in their nostrils. And they found that if they weren't exercising, and I'm just going to throw out some numbers, but they're not going to be correct. It was like at 30 or 40%. Because they didn't exercise. All they had that group do was walk 3 times a week for 30 minutes. And that's not a huge amount. It's good. They walked 3 times a week for 30 minutes, and it went up exponentially, up over close to 70%. Wow. So you can see, I know, and that was new to me. I knew exercise was good. I knew the fresh air, the calming effect, our immune systems are strengthening, our capacity in our lungs. But to understand that these nose cells are very powerful, but they become more powerful when you exercise. Now, there is a threshold. You can get your body to exercise a certain amount, but if every time you go out, you're actually killing yourself, like exercising too much, unable to breathe through your nose because all you can do is gas through your mouth, and you're exercising up and around the 1.5 to 2 hour mark, your immune system drops. So there's a point where you're not exercising, your immune system is taking a negative hit to the point where you start to move a little bit, and your body's feeling a little bit better to the point where you're consistently exercising, not too hard. Enjoying what you're doing is important. Outside, even more, there's reasons why, but then you can do too much, and that's where the more is not better. So a lot of, my athletes, a lot of them are runners and they run long distance. They always have upper respiratory infections in the winter.
So I guess it's everything in moderation, like our grandparents used to say.
It really is when it comes to exercise. Mm-hmm.
Okay, now here's the one that seems to be in the news a lot right now, and it's vitamin D. It seems like, because the information about COVID is so volatile, it is changing all the time. And no one really has a grip, including the best scientists in the world. They know one thing one moment, and the next moment something it's different. But one thing that they all agree on is that most people who get COVID-19, when they do their blood work, they're low in vitamin D.
Mm-hmm. Well, the reason why, and that's one of my 4 basics. There's some basic ones I think we'd all should take, and then you look at some blood work and your symptoms, and you might add something in for that time being. Vitamin D. First of all, we have to understand vitamin D is not a vitamin. It is a hormone. It is a hormone, just like all the other hormones in our body. It's a hormone-like substance, and our body makes it in the presence of sun. Yes, we can get it in some certain foods, fatty fish, and if it's added to our milk, if you choose to drink milk and that, but that's such a small amount, and the absorption rate is really, unknown at times. But if your body, when in the sunshine, when the sun hits your skin, and it turns to a thing called tocopherol D, and then it's slowly absorbed into your bloodstream, into something called D3, which our body needs, that must be a very powerful thing. But sadly, you and I live in Canada, and us up here, the sun is not strong enough to make that conversion most of the months of the year. You and I, in Canada, where we live, we can only make vitamin D from the sunshine from mid-June to mid-August. That's a short period of time. We are now the beginning of November. That means that we haven't made vitamin D for about 6 to 8 weeks. Plus, to make the vitamin D, we have to have 80% of our skin exposed. That's not normal. So you need 80% of your skin exposed, meaning shoulders and thighs. So when people on their lunch break go out and sit there for 15 minutes and think that they've made their vitamin D because their hands have been in the sun and their face, probably not. It's not enough skin area, and there's a good chance that they have sun protection on. And the only hours we can make it is between the hours of 11 and 3. Some people even say closer than that to the noon hour. So we have to be out in the sun in the summer between the hours of 11 and 3 with 80% of our skin exposed with no sunscreen on for 20 minutes 3 times a week to make sufficient D that our body can store to take us through the winter. And I will say, and this is just my own practice alone, in decades, I have never seen a blood test with optimum vitamin D where the person was not supplementing. Ever. So it is one of those things, and make sure it's a good supplement. I prefer a liquid. What a great thing to do would be to get your blood test and get your vitamin D tested right off the get-go. Know where you are, because that will let you know how much you have to add. And then you add consistently, because we don't get sun consistently unless you and I are going to go to Hawaii or something. And we get to be out in the sunshine every single day. So we're not getting it here. And when you look at the health, yes, they are finding that people who are in right now with COVID, that their vitamin D levels are the lowest. And I've read that in Germany and those countries that when you go into the hospital, it is one of the things that they give you.
Well, I had some people say to me this weekend, "Oh, we're making vitamin D. What a wonderfully beautiful day it is."
Yeah.
And I said, "It's a wonderfully beautiful day, but you're not making vitamin D." "Oh, yes, the sun is hot and I can feel it on my face." And yes, you can, but it's the air that's warm this weekend with the weather that we've been having. And when it's in November, the sun doesn't have the strength that it does in July. It just doesn't.
No, the sun really has to be right above us, and the length of the sun rays to our skin has to be the shortest, and we now know all day long it's on that tilt. So that's why the sun has to be quite strong, and that's why you really can make it within those 15, 20 minutes. Past that, you might burn, but you need that, and it is so important. But we live in a culture where it's, got to put the sunscreen on and don't let the children out at that time, and we're shunning the sun, but it is a very important vitamin, as we say, but it's a hormone, and it is vital to human health, and that's why our body makes it in the presence of sunshine. Our body doesn't make vitamin B's or K's in the presence of sunshine. It makes vitamin D in the presence of sunshine. So it must be pretty important to the human body.
Yeah, we know that you can't live in the dark. You have to have some sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if we move on to the next thing, because as usual, we're running out of time. Eating less sugar we already touched upon, but this nourishing your gut biome, what's that all about?
Well, the gut really is a tube that starts at your mouth and it goes down your trachea, into your stomach, through your small intestine, through your large intestine, and then out, hopefully with ease and regularity. So that is actually our gut. Even though when we say gut, we think of our stomach. Mm-hmm. Your gut is a tube, and in that tube, you have trillions of bacteria, good and bad, and yeast and protozoas and everything. But we have good bacteria in there. That bacteria is your immune system. Because if you think when things are coming through orifices, coming through your ears and your eyes and your nose and your mouth, where are they going to go? They first go into your mouth, and hopefully you have a good immune system cells in your mouth, which is that bacteria, good bacteria. If you have bad bacteria, you might have bad breath. That's why I'm not a fan of mouthwashes with alcohol. Don't get rid of that bacteria. So that's our first defense. Our nose has a defense, and it's in our mouth, and it goes down into your stomach. And your stomach's in a very acidic area. So maybe if those areas didn't catch it, your stomach may kill it. And if not, then it goes into those intestines, and that's where hopefully we will be killed. So that immune system is working for you, and it can be to the tune of 2 to 4 pounds of bacteria living in our guts. And that bacteria have to be fed. And they love plants. They love everything that's left over when we eat plants. They do not eat sugar at all. They don't like sugar. They don't fuel on sugar. And the sugar feeds the bad bacteria and the yeast. So you really want a strong immune system, and we feed our bacteria with the fiber that's left over. We also feed it with a lot of nutrients that are actually in fiber that we're just finding out now. Sugar, they will starve if you're just feeding it sugar. And we need that bacteria. And you have to replenish your bacteria. Well, we don't replenish our bacteria. If you think, well, how do we do that? Well, that's with a probiotic food, bacteria food, a fermented food. Every culture in the world, they'll have foods that are fermented. It would be kimchi, kombucha, yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut. Cultures have a fermented food that's been part of their nourishment. Here we have processed and refined foods. So we have really lost that, and then we bring in antibiotics, which kill our bacteria, and chlorinated water kills our bacteria, stress kills our bacteria, sugar starves our bacteria. So we have to bring it in. So you can do it by fermented foods, or I'm a fan of probiotics, just having people add them. So you want to bring the bacteria in, then you want to feed it what it wants, and now it's in there. And if stuff doesn't get caught, your gut will catch it. And that's 60+% of our immune system.
Wow. Well, as usual, Shawn, we just get into a great topic and the time starts to run out. So I will have to say that that's all we can get to right now, and that we'll have to continue this conversation on another day. So we will do a part 2 coming up really soon. Everybody can stay tuned for that, because we love having you on the show, Shawn. So thank you so much for joining us this morning and giving us our little tips about how to boost our immune system. And if anyone wants more information, they can always just give me an email at bren@freshwaves.ca, and we'll hook you up with Shawn for some more information. Thanks, Shawn.
Thank you, Brenda.